Hi everyone, it's Abdurrahman here from Business Central Career Lab. In today's video, we are diving into a crucial topic for any finance team, cash management in Business Central, with a spotlight on cash flow forecasts and cash flow accounts. We're going to see many things on the cash management capabilities within Business Central. If you're looking to help your client manage liquidity, predict future cash availability, or just want to level up your techno-functional expertise, this one is for you. For forecasting in Business Central, this is a powerful tool that lets businesses predict their short-term cash positions. It combines receivables, payables, manual revenues and expenses forecasts, and also liquidity movement like loans and investments. By visualizing this, companies can prepare for potential cash shortages or surpluses. Okay. And the big question will be, what are cash flow accounts in Business Central? Now, before setting up a forecast, you need to understand cash flow accounts. Think of them as chart of accounts, but only for forecasting purposes. In Business Central, cash flow accounts categorize forecasted transactions like income, expenses, and financial activities. You can define accounts like bank, uh, customer payments, supplier payments, investment, and so on and so forth. Now, without wasting time, we'll dive into a quick demo of setting up cash flow forecast. So we are going to start with the main components of the chart of cash flow accounts, and moving forward, you'll be able to have a clear understanding of that. Okay, so as I explained earlier about the functions of cash flow forecast, you can capture different cash flow plans and establish one or more cash flow forecasts that you can use to create plans from different viewpoints. When you do the planning, you can incorporate values from general ledger, sales, purchasing, service, fixed assets, and many entities of master data in Business Central. And what we'll do is, on the cash management tab, we have a chart of cash flow accounts. So before doing this, initially used to set them manually, but as Microsoft advanced, it gave us an easy option on assisted setup. So what you need to do is navigate to assisted setup, and here you can say search for cash. Okay. So welcome to the setup of cash flow forecasting. You say next, the focus will be deleted, and you want to continue. So initially I have already created my cash flow forecast, so for the demo purposes I'll just delete it and create a new one, and it has selected the accounts for the cash, see, for the cash flow. And here you can select the frequency that you want to update your cash flow. So you can say never if you want to do it manually every time, and you can also put daily or weekly. So I'll just put weekly in this case. I don't want to enable Azure AI in this, but you can also enable this a train model of AI that can help you, that can help the system analyze the data from there and give you a forecast based on its analysis. So for this, it needs to have a certain pattern. So if the data is, there's a gap between the data, you are not going to help it give you the accurate thing. But if data is consistent, it might use that to give you valuable output. So I don't want to use this in this case, but it's very valuable. You can if you want. And for this, we'll just explore it in the next session so that I can take you through the model. So I've just selected the accounts, and you have selected the frequency. Then I'm selecting next, and here I'll say monthly. Which account do I use to pay taxes? Here I can select VAT account. Okay. So here you can select the account that you use to pay taxes, and in this case I'm gonna select account 5780. But in your case, you can just check which account you use to do that, and you can input it here. So I just select next, then I'll finish. Okay, so it's running the batch now. Perfect. So after this, now on cash flow accounts, you can see that it has generated this list. Before that, we didn't have this, and after running the batch, now we have the cash flow accounts. So it has categorized into service orders, jobs, tax, receivables, and many others. Okay, so for example, if I go to purchase orders, I'll be able to see the fields that are here. We have the number, name, account type, and most importantly is the GL integration. So if you want to integrate a GL account or a budget, you can do that here, and you can also select both. So with the GL integration, you can actually select the GL account that you want the system to consider, but it's not mandatory. You can just leave it blank, and the system will check on the background the payables, and it will update it there as per the setup that you've done. So that's on cash flow setup. And another thing is we have this. This is the cash flow setup page. Now initially we ran this, so the cash flow setup automatically updated via assisted setup, and it has automatically inputted the receivables account, payables, and all that for the cash flow purposes. Not for, you can also do this manually. You can come here and input it manually, input the number series that you want and the tax account that you want to use. Okay, and in case you want to use AI model, you can also do that here. You can input the details and you will be good to go. Okay, so that's all what you need to do on the setup, and after this you're good to go to the next step. Okay, all right. To mention about cash flow setup, it is paramount for you to understand all these fields what they pertain. So for example, here we have this receivables CF account. Now this enters the code or the number of the cash flow account in which the value for open receivable will be registered. Now the program or the system uses this, it uses the customer ledger entries to calculate open receivable. So whatever you input here, the system on the background, it will use customer ledger entries, check the total of that, then input it on this account. All right. Now the same with the payables. So for open payables are registered in this cash flow account, payables CF. Okay. Now the system uses open vendor ledger entries to calculate the open payables. Now for sales order, the system uses sales orders that are not yet fully invoiced to calculate the order volume. All right. Same for companies that use a service module, it will do the same thing for that. Okay. Now for moving forward with the FA budget CF account, it enters the number of the cash flow account in which the acquisition costs of the budgeted fixed assets will be registered. Okay, now that's the case. And lastly, for so for the disposal, it will do the same thing. Okay, it will, as the description says here, it specifies the fixed assets disposal account or account number that is used in cash flow forecast. All right. So let's say we have a situation where you are supposed to set up a cash flow forecast card and you want to calculate the cash flow of your company. Let's say February 2025. Therefore, you need to set up a cash flow card, include mutual payments and financial budgets, let's say from February 1st or just January 1st of 2025 to end of 2025. Okay. So what you'll need to do, you'll just make sure first in this system, I'll make sure I have the date correct here. So let's say you want to calculate cash flow of your company on February 25th. let's say February 25th. Okay, this one. And you need to set the cash flow card for this, the forecast card. So what you'll do is right here on the cash management, you have cash flow forecast, and then you can create, okay, a cash flow forecast card. So I have this one already created for default, but I can create another one called cash flow, let's say the third forecast. For 2025. So I'll say the third cash flow forecast for 2025. I can put additional description here. Now in this case, we do not want to consider the discount and payment conditions, so I'll just put all this off. And I don't want to also consider the budget. We'll do another one for the budget. So this one is a simple one. If I want it to show to the roll center, I can enable this so that it can show to the roll center. And if I also want to input manual payments, I can enable this as well from the beginning of the year, to the end. Okay, so I've just inputted that. Let me put till December so that it can include manual and revenues for both. You can also select a budget if you want to incorporate, but in this case, it's just a simple one. So after you've just set up that card and everything is okay, if you have any comments, you can input the comments here. So let's say I want to input this comment, but you can input any comment that you want. Okay, so you can input the comments here, and assuming you have some manual revenues, manual expenses, you can input the manual expenses as well. Okay, so let me just show you. You have some manual revenues that you want to incorporate here. So what you do is we can come here and search manual revenue, and we can input, so let's say rent for, so we'll say that it starts from, okay, and this is something that it can start from January to December, so it's something that is occurring once in a month. So you just input it monthly there, and you just input the starting date January, and it will end in December as the date is within the range. This is all you need to do to set up this simple scenario for the cash flow. And another thing to mention is sometimes you might want to, because the cash flow, how it works is it checks on the due dates. For example, open purchase orders and open sales orders, it checks on the due date, and sometimes the payment due date is not realistic. A customer who's supposed to pay in 2 weeks can end up paying in 3 weeks or even more, and the same with you paying the suppliers. So you might want to put the realistic payment terms on the cash flow, and for that reason we have on customer master and supplier master, we have the payment terms for cash flow to help the cash flow program to calculate based on a realistic value. So for example, if I open this customer, it's a random customer, on the payment tab, we see we have this payment terms code, and we also have cash flow payment terms code. So you can also input 60 days here as cash flow payment terms code, so that the cash flow, when it runs it on the background, it will take consideration of this. Okay, so that's what you can do. The same with the supplier, you can get the field and import it there. So what you need to do is, after that, you can go to the worksheet and run the worksheet for it to update the batch job. Okay, so here on the home tab on the cash flow card, you can come to cash flow worksheet and you can suggest worksheet lines. So I've just included everything here so that it can take consideration of everything except Azure AI. But if you want to include it too, you can also select this. Now you select OK. I don't want to input the budget, so I'll just make it blank in this case. Okay, let me select the forecast is 3, this one. Okay, perfect. So as you can see, the system has generated a list of entries. Okay, now these are cash flow entries that the system has generated. So what you need to do is you can analyze these entries right from here. So you can select to any entry. For example, this one, I can select this, then say show. The system will show me this is an invoice and can even drill further and find entries. Okay, so this is dynamic and it's clickable, and you are able to drill in to find the data that resulted to that value. Now you can do this to any entry, like which is here, and you can have visibility, full visibility. And if there is an entry that is linked with the dimension, you can also check the dimensions here. Okay, so this is also possible to check. Okay, so on the cash flow worksheet, as you can see, we've already generated it right here. And in case you want to add some new dimensions, you can also do that. Okay, you can add the appropriate dimensions that are relevant in this case. Okay, and close it so that you can have visibility later on. Okay, for the entries. Now after you've generated the entries, all you need to do is to register like this. Then it will register to that cash flow forecast number. Perfect. So now we have the cash flow forecast registered for cash flow 10003. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is you can be able now to see the cash flow forecast. Here you can have the statistics, you can have the report, you can have periodic report and all that. So let me just start with the statistics just to give you an overview of how it is. So this is more like of a general view. It generalizes everything. You can see the liquid funds, receivables. You can even click to drill into the entries here. Okay, and you can also pull this to Excel if you want to. And you also see the open sales order and the liquid figure. Okay, same. And you can also drill into the exact entries to see how this figure resulted to be. Okay, now I'm going back and I'll want to see this in a linear view, in a report view. So I come here and say entries. Here I can see all the cash flow ledger entries, and I can say I want to see availability by period. Okay, so this is, you can see that it's just categorized by month. Now I can decide to look at the entries by week, even by day. But what I want to do is to check by month. Now I can see, let's say for example, for the month of April. Okay, for the month of April, these are the figures, receivables. But I'm seeing that on September, there's some movement, there's some cash movement here. I'm seeing how liquid the figures are. Okay, so I can just drill down and analyze them further. So what sales orders, I can say, these purchase orders or this payable figure, how is it like this? Let me drill down and find out. So I'll be able to see these posted purchase invoices and so on and so forth. So this is a very powerful tool for CFOs and managers that needs to analyze the cash flow movement within a company. Now, assuming we want to create another cash flow forecast and see how movement is, and now we'll take many things into consideration. So assuming we have a scenario that on March 25th, 2025, you want to calculate liquidity of a company for March, including manual payments and financial budget from March. Okay, 1st 2025 to December 2025. Okay, in the planning you must also include the discount and the payment tolerance amounts. In the comments, state that this planning reflects the third cash flow calculation for the year 2025. Now what we will do here for this task is, first of all, we need to create cash flow forecast, okay, on the card. So because the scenario entails March, so we need to ensure that our work date is on 25th March. So let me just change the work date. In a typical scenario, we'll just go with the same work date. So I'm assuming today is 25th. Okay, so because we have entries, so let's just go with this. So then you need to create a cash flow forecast card. Now here on the cash flow forecast card, we can create one. Yeah, and we can say cash flow forecast for March 2025. For example, I can say this is the description, and I want to consider discount, so I'll enable this. And I also want to consider this, which is payment discount tolerance. Okay, so I'm considering payment discount tolerance. I also want to consider payment tolerance of amount, and GL budget I want to run from March to December. Okay, so I'll make sure it runs from March, it will be March 1st to December. So let me just put the current date, which is this February. So we have to, it has to be realistic. If today is February 25th, so we have to go with that. And after that, I'll say also want to put this till December. GL budget for it to consider till December. And then also want to include manual payments from this date, which is today's date to end of. And then the instruction is to add a comment that this third cash flow forecast for 2025 for March. So I'll just come here and I'll go to and I'll input the comment. As simple as that. Then I'll close. So it's auto saves itself. Now for manual revenues and expenses that we to include, we'll have to create a new cash flow account for the bonus as per the requirement and enter the manual expense entry right there. So to create a new cash flow account, so right here on the, you can even search here for the cash flow accounts, or you can come here to chart of cash flow accounts, and let's say we want to create a new one. Let's call it 1035 for example, and call it bonus payment premiums. Okay, so it's called bonus payment okay, then type will be entry, then the source type, of course it's cash flow manual and expense, and we'll put that this is a manual expense. Yeah, and we've created our cash flow account. Then I'll go back 1035, as you can see. But what you need to do is to ensure that you have these numbers in a chronological order. Okay, so we've just created the first account, which is bonus payment premiums. Okay, now we'll move forward to the next one. After that is we have a requirement of inputting the manual account. Okay, so it's a manual expense account and it's a bonus payment. So what we're going to do is right here we have this cash management, then we have manual expenses. So you can easily input an account here. So let me just input one account and call it bonus payment premium. Okay, So this is an expense account, and I'll input the assuming it's 5,000. And the starting date is this, and end date you can put the relevant end date. For me, I can say that this is occurs in 2 months. I can say, yes, 2025. I can put until let's say April 2025. Yep. So 25. Okay, so it gives me a validation error in this case. Yeah, so you can input here. Just a minute. Let's see. Not saved. Okay, so I've just inputted till December so that it can recur in every month. And after that, you can just save and close this, and now you have your bonus payment expense registered into the cash flow setup. And now you can proceed to use the cash flow worksheet after this, and the process will be the same from the initial process that we did, which involved suggest cash flow lines. So what you do is, now that you've registered the expense, if assuming you have any revenue that you also want to register it, you can as well register a revenue here as a manual revenue. Like you can also register it here. So you can just come to manual revenues and input. For example, I've just inputted rent here. And now that we have our cash flow manual revenues and expenses defined, we can just go back to cash flow forecast, and we can go to our newly created forecast, which is this one. And then we can navigate to cash flow worksheet, and we can suggest, and we want to include the budget for 2025 as well. Now we can input all these, and assuming if you want to include Azure AI forecast, you can also do that. Then you let the system do its magic on the background and give you this list of entries. Okay. At this stage, you can, before you even register this, you can first of all review all of these entries, or some of these entries. You can sample some and review. So I just want to review this, assuming I want to review the purchases. So I'll come to purchase invoices and just check the entries. For example, here I have purchase orders. So I'll come here and I'll say show. Then I'll navigate from here to the exact purchase order that resulted to this. Okay, so I can check these purchase orders, I can confirm the details, then just to be sure on this, but it's accurate. Then if you want to input any dimensions for your analysis, you can just import it here. So you can see these dimensions that have been set up in the master level, and that's why they appear here. So once you are done with that, you can register. I'll say yes, and it will register, and now it's fully registered. And back to this, if you want this to show enroll center, you can enable this. Cash flow payment terms, you can also enable this. Okay, and now we didn't enable this before, so we've enabled it now. And in that case, for it to take care of that, you'll have to suggest again, and it will override. So I've just done it again. Perfect. Now the worksheet is successfully registered in the system. For me to be able to see this forecast, I can come here and I can go to statistics just to see the overview of that. Okay, just a minute. Liquid funds. One thing to note is that for the cash flow payment terms, if you enable it, you need to make sure that this field is populated in the vendor and customer master. If not, just leave it blank. and just run it like that. So if you enable that and you don't have the field populated, just end up with a blank fields with 0 lines. Okay, so just do that. Then if you want to enable Azure AI forecast, you can do that, then register. Okay, perfect. And now we can be able to see that the fields are populated, and you can even drill down to the entries. Okay, now that's one way of checking it. Another way is you can also check it periodically, and you can select either yearly or monthly, daily, weekly, quarterly. So I've just selected monthly here. I'm able to see the figures, how they are able to be viewed, how they've been pulled from the open sales orders, open purchase orders, receivables, payable. Then I'm able to see on the last column how liquid my figures in each month. Okay, so you can check the liquidity right here from the cash flow entries that are predicted. Then that's it, pertaining just viewing it by month or by week, by quarterly, do that. So lastly, we can be able to see that we have this report. So on still on cash flow forecast, we have this section where you have this report. You can just navigate and input the start from date. If you want intervals, you can also incorporate that, then preview. You can be able to print this report. Now this is, as the name suggests, this is a cash flow date list. So the report is used for viewing cash movement on a day-to-day basis, tracking timing of cash flows, and also identifying cash shortages or surpluses on specific dates. Okay. So you can see before and after there. Also, it can help you to support liquidity planning and short-term cash decisions. So you're able to see before that we had these figures, and this is cash flow interference. And after that, we had these figures, and the cash flow interference resulted to 1.646 million. And yes, so that's just to give you an overview of the cash flow capabilities within Business Central, and you being able to assess the liquidity of the company based on this powerful feature from Microsoft Dynamics. With that being said, thank you very much for watching this, and looking forward to have you here next time. Thank you.